Sir, how do you assess and how do you read
Yeah.
and view the start of the ceasefire in Gaza?
Well, finally, we came to the moment of truth after 15 months of genocide and the brutality against the Palestinian people. We see that ceasefire truce is a little bit weak. It does not fulfill the Palestinian political aims and goals, and it is not, guaranteed to continue, especially with Netanyahu cabinet and the
Sir, you
ministers.
said you see it as weak?
Sorry?
You said you see it as weak?
Yeah, we see it as a weak agreement. It says it does not have many guarantees to force Israel not to continue its wars. We only can rely on the mediators to force and fulfill Israel's commitment. It also does not answer our political issues and political context, which is the most important part. There's no mention about the two-state solution. There is no mention of the Palestinian right to return refugees and the independent Palestinian state. So it has, isolated itself from any political horizon. It's merely a prisoner swap deal. It leaves many questions unanswered. But in any way, a ceasefire is needed, and it is the first step forward. But it requires an immediate follow-up by the partners, by the mediators, by the PLO and Israel and Americans to find a political horizon to translate this into a sustainable peace.
Sir, could you describe your reaction to the ceasefire and the beginning of humanitarian aid entering Gaza?
Now, the humanitarian aid entry is of course important. Egypt has played a major role in providing the logistics, all the humanitarian aid required. I believe around maybe more than 100 trucks has entered already. And now we are waiting for the release of the Palestinian prisoners, which Hamas already has released 3 of the Israeli hostages, but it left, now Israel still not haven't released the Palestinian prisoners from Ofra prison. They say that it is for security reasons because there's a presence of Israeli settlers around the Ofra prison who want to attack the prisoners. We are not sure if this is true or not, but we are waiting to see what is the updates. The aid, of course, now in Gaza is urgent and must continue immediately. The destruction is massive. This leaves Gaza as a ghost town, and that's why a political solution that prevents wars, because the Palestinian people in Gaza cannot withstand any more wars. They need a political horizon. They need a government, a legitimate government, legitimacy to
You
come
think,
back.
sir, that you can foresee soon a government in Palestine?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Is it possible, sir, for a government now to take place and be available? Do you foresee a government in Palestine soon, sir?
Yes, it could be available. We have a functional government. We have a structure. We have a healthy government. It just requires, to go to Gaza to be allowed to enter. Hamas now needs to think clearly.
In light of the
Obviously,
ceasefire, sir, it is facilitated that you can go and, of course, go on with the procedures and the government can be formed.
of course, that could be done on a face-to-face. Of course, now we need guarantees that Israel stops. We need guarantees that Israel must respect the Palestinian right to express themselves democratically, to have their own government. And it requires from Hamas side to also think clearly about the future, about their people, because now it's clear that the international war arena cannot accept Hamas in power. The Arab world also cannot accept Hamas in power. The Palestinian in Gaza, Hamas popularity now is in its lowest. Now is the time that for a government, for the legitimate government, to come back to Gaza, and let's forget all the partisan differences we have, this party-to-party differences. Let's put it aside. Now this is the future for our people. People are suffering deeply. There's a huge destruction, and we need to rebuild Gaza, and we need to rebuild Gaza on a political program that benefits Gaza. Hamas until now did not have or did not provide any political program for the Palestinian people to work within. So we need to sit clearly, and the government go back, the PLO go back to Gaza, and take assume its responsibility on the ground.
Mr. Ahmed Fattouh, why do I feel that your narrative, or how do you feel about today and the ceasefire? Do you read today as a historic day in the Gaza war that has been taking place for the last 15 months? Of course, the atrocities and genocides, leave alone, of course, since 1948, what we reach today. How do you read it, sir?
Now, as I said, any ceasefire, any immediate ceasefire is much needed, and we build on it. It's weak because it left many questions unanswered. We have the Rafah crossing. Israel said that it will not withdraw from there. For the Netzarim, Israel said it would not withdraw from there. Today, just today, the cabinet at Netanyahu office said that they got a green light from the United States that they could initiate the war anytime they feel it's needed. So that is not, a truce. This is a temporal cessation of military activities. Now, it has been divided into phases. What we fear is that after phase one, when Israel takes its prisoners, they will continue in their massacre and their genocide. So it does require a huge pressure from the mediators. We hold high hopes from Egypt, from Qatar, and from the Arab world to pressure the Israeli and the Americans to keep that pressure on Israel. Trump has put a pressure on Netanyahu, but also we are afraid that this is just for phase one. But we need now to be implemented sustainably. That means, which requires a political solution between all the partners to put that political solution in action. So that's why it is also important to point out that it did not answer anything about the reconstruction of Gaza. It did not give any answers of that. So that's why we are afraid from this deal to be not fulfilled by Israel and only used for Israel to take their prisoners and then leave the Palestinian hanging.
Sir, describe the current situation in the West Bank after the ceasefire in Gaza began.
Of course, there is a huge escalation. Smotrich is trying to extort Netanyahu that he wants to escalate in the West Bank. As you know, Ben Gvir has resigned from the government. Now we have the government still functioning, not collapsed, but Smotrich, if he resigns, it could lead for the government collapse. So now he is, technically the man who is in control, because if he resigns, the government is going to collapse. Smotrich is a far-right religious Zionist. He is extremist. He is, racist against the Palestinians, and he wants to increase the escalation in the West Bank. There has been an intensifying of Israeli army presence between the cities of the West Bank, and they are trying to drag us into more and more conflict. However, we, the Palestinian people, are resilient people, are steadfast, are aware of their plans, and the Palestinian leadership is doing all its efforts to keep the people, to protect the people, and to de-escalate the situation, of course, with our international partners, with the US, with the EU, with the Arabs, to make Israel fulfill this commitment. So,
Mr. Fattouh, give me a second, please, to mention that the three detainees that were the Israeli detainees that were handed by Hamas to Israel are handed now and passed to the military, and now they're on their way to a hospital to be evaluated, and their of course health evaluation as mentioned previously in the ceasefire, sir. So how do you view the significant division within the Israeli government regarding the ceasefire agreement in Gaza?
The government of who? Israel?
Yes, sir. The Israeli government regarding the ceasefire agreement in Gaza.
They are against it. There's a huge opposition within the government, within the far-right parties, and they want the war to keep going. Their ambition is the extermination and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. That has been declared from day one. It is where the pressure of the mediators and to be more truthful, the pressure of Trump as well has played a major role to stop or to reach this temporal cessation of military activity. Now we need to build on that to make and exert more pressure. The Israeli government is, playing with fire. What they are doing is escalation in hope that they would lead to the mass expulsion of Palestinians. That will, bring the whole Middle East into conflict. That is not, a wise people thinking. This is a far-right fascist way of thinking. If they would remove the Palestinians from their land, that means that we went to square one. In 1965, our revolution started from refugee camps to return to Palestine. Now they will bring us back to 1965. And that is not the benefit of anyone, not the Europeans, not the Americans, not the Arabs, not anyone.
Mr. Fatouh, I don't mean here to interrupt you, or of course, I just want to mention that you were mentioning Smotrich, sir, who was threatening to resign if this ceasefire goes on, whereas Ben-Gvir resigned and Smotrich did not resign. And this is part of the division within the Israeli government, sir. How do you read this?
Smotrich is interested in entering or invading West Bank or escalating in West Bank. And also he said that he will not resign unless Netanyahu does not re-evoke the war in phase 2. So he is exerting his extortion against Netanyahu to continue and prolong the war. So we have to wait and see. Where are we going from here? The pressure, the world's pressure is of utmost importance.
Pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, sir?
Sorry?
Pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
You mean Smotrich is pressuring Netanyahu?
No, sir. You were mentioning that you're waiting to see the pressure. So I was asking you, the pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or other sources?
In all parts. Because Smotrich is playing a role that is escalating the war, that wants to bring the whole area into war. He wants Netanyahu to to prolong the war, to re-evoke the war. In the second phase, that's clearly what he said. This is not, prediction or assumption. He said it literally, just I think today morning or yesterday. And he also said requested the escalation in the West Bank and the annexation of the West Bank. So what Smotrich is saying is an endless war, because that means if there is annexation, if there is a continuous war in Gaza, that means the whole eruption of Gaza and a whole escalation in the Middle East.
Mr. Ahmed Fatouh, as a Palestinian, could you please describe the celebrations in the West Bank after the ceasefire agreement in Gaza came into effect?
All the misery, the agony, the pain that our people felt.
Of course, sir.
The demand of Gaza is painful for us all. But we are happy for the cessation of the war. We are happy to see them that finally they could move. They move in the streets. They stopped hearing this warplanes in the sky.
They can eat, sir. They can drink.
They could drink. They could eat. They could sleep peacefully. And we are happy that our prisoners is going to be released. We are happy that our people is finally seeing a little bit hope in this dark reality. Most of the prisoners are going out today. Mostly are from Fatah party. Of course, we love all our prisoners, all parties. So now we also, as a Fatah, are happy to meet our brothers, our cadres who have been arrested for a long time. There are many children and women who will be released from these dungeons of this brutal inhumane occupation that imprison children, that imprison women. By the way, most of them are imprisoned in illegal detention, without trial, without court. Children in prison, we are talking 2025, children living in prison without a trial. In what world is this acceptable?
Sir, it's worth to mention, of course, that there were 15 months of agony and of pain and, of course, of atrocities and genocides. Unacceptable, sir. And, of course, it's worth to mention that here from Q News and all Egypt and Egyptians, we wish, of course, all the Palestinians best of luck. And we will be always minute by minute with you in every coverage and every happiness and agony, sir. Spokesperson for the Palestinian National Liberation Movement, Fatah, Ahmed Fattouh, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News and sharing this very special historic day with you, sir. Of course, it's our utmost pleasure, sir.